Hey everybody, how we all doing tonight? Good to be back. I've been on kind of a long hiatus, so first things first, technical check. Can you all hear me out there? I'm still having issues with the laptop, so I'm having to run things on a few different systems here. So audio check. People in the audience, let me know if you can hear me. A little twisted. This is usually where you jump in. All right, there you go. Loud and clear. Perfect. Fantastic. Good to be back. I've spent a lot of time past couple months up in Kentucky and Tennessee. My future mother-in-law needed some help, and my fiance needed some help, so I've been spending time up there, working on getting my stuff together so I can move back up there by them and by my kids. Pretty productive. I was able to pick up a motor home, so I've got a place to kind of stay as we finish remodeling Jen's house. So a lot of adventures while we were up there. Those of you that watch the channel more than just this show, you may have seen that I was able to get together with Grizzly, and we did a really fantastic ghost hunt up there in Harlan, Kentucky, Harlan County, technically in Benham. Had a great time, got to use some equipment that I'd never used before, and we just had a lot of fun with that. I'm sure Grizz has talked about it on his other shows. If not, feel free to ask me questions in the chat. We can definitely talk about it throughout the night. Remember, guys, if you're going to put questions in the chat, please do all caps so it gets my attention because I am running everything over here. Another fun and exciting thing that happened, I don't know if you guys remember our guest we had a while back, Timothy Wayne Williams, the artist, who does the pictures where he hides Bigfoot in them. He paints them and hides a Bigfoot in them. He put out a new book, which I happen to get right here. And I got to tell you, it is fantastic. It's called Your Bigfoot Expedition. You can check him out on Facebook. But basically, it is a collection of his pictures. Okay. And it's for your coffee table. It's for your bedside table. It's where you can just sit and look at his pictures, these wonderful paintings that he does. There we go. And it'll tell you that there's Bigfoot hiding them, sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes three. Very cool book, very cool artwork. So I highly suggest you want to support a fellow member of the community. It was like $35. I got an autographed copy. Get a hold of him on his Facebook, Timothy Wayne Williams. Check it out. It was pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about it. I've been wanting to show it. I've had it for a while now, but haven't really had a chance. So welcome everybody that's coming in tonight. Thank you. Thank you. I see Little Twisted. Faithful listener, Joey Yunkin. Welcome to the show. Latro, I'm not even going to say your last name, but you said you're Dave from Austin. Hey, Dave. How you doing? Good to see you. Nada's in the audience tonight. Mom, welcome. Thank you. Everybody out there that's not in our live chat, that's listening on one of our platforms somewhere around the world, welcome, welcome. Don't forget to check out the channel, Bigfoot Outlaw. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Comment, kick that algorithm for us. Have some fun with it. Check out all the shows. We are basically a hub for several different types of shows at Bigfoot Outlaw. We pretty much have anything you're going to be interested in, from true crime, cold crime, psychics, checking a look at crimes. We have UFO people. We've got me, who does a little bit of everything, mostly cryptids. We've got Bigfoot guys. We've got just all kinds of stuff on the channel. And Grizzly is always finding some new people, new talent to bring on. So pretty exciting stuff. Also, I got to say happy Halloween to everybody out there that celebrates it. I have nothing against Halloween. I'm just not a very festive person, so I don't do a whole lot for it. But I thought for tonight, we would do a pretty cool talk-it. Hi, John. John Barfield from Georgia. Welcome. Many of you are familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, or was it Frog Ranch? those ones. But how many of you are familiar with the Stardust Ranch? Stardust Ranch, I've always thought was pretty cool. It was a topic that I was really into in the 90s, but then it kind of phased out. I thought everything had just kind of stopped and it just wasn't popular anymore. There was no new information out about it. But I was wrong. I went to go dig in and get refreshed on the story like I like to do. And there was a lot of new information. So this is going to be a little different format tonight. First, I'm going to go over basically what Stardust Ranch is all about, some of the weird stuff that happened there, kind of the basic outline, basic story. And then I was able to actually go and find the Facebook page for it. So I've got all kinds of different pictures and comments and stuff that kind of goes along with it. I will start off by saying I'm not here to give credit to or disprove the mystery of Stardust Ranch. I believe that should be left up to each individual person. I think there's a lot of stuff where, I got photographs and there's pictures and all kinds of cool stuff. And there's some things that make me question some of this stuff. So it's one of those where everybody needs to decide for themselves. I'm just going to present you with the basic story, give you guys a rundown. If you want to, go do some research on your own and check it out. The work is out there. They did write a book, so there's a book about Stardust Ranch. So just going to be fun. I thought it'd be a good kind of Halloween, creepy, kind of story night kind of a thing, right? Because Stardust Ranch has everything. Doppelgangers, aliens, men in black, government, animal mutilations, UFOs, portals. The only thing I didn't find anything on was like Bigfoot or Dogman, which kind of surprised me. Creepy old men, poltergeist activity, like all kinds of stuff at Stardust Ranch. And it was active up until a few years ago, where unfortunately the gentleman passed away. But really, it got started June of 1996, where the story starts for Stardust Ranch. John and Joyce Edmounds is the people that's going to be part of our story here. John was a psychiatric therapist, did some kind of therapy at his own office. Not a whole lot of detail there. Joyce, his wife, works for the FBI organized crime unit, some kind of clerical position. They didn't give a whole lot there with it. But back in 1996, John decided he wanted to retire and pursue his dream of doing a horse rescue. Hey, there's the real grizzly. Hey, Bigfoot grizzly. There's the real one, guys. John, you were looking for him. And so they start looking around. They're out in Arizona, just outside of Phoenix, and they're looking around to find this perfect property. John has been a lifelong dream of having a horse rescue, an animal rescue. Horse and dogs are his passion, but he really wants to do a horse rescue. So he's taking his life savings. He wants to get out of the therapist field, and he wants to just kind of do his thing. And they finally find a property it's in Rainbow Valley, Arizona. Rainbow Valley, 10-acre property. They go in, they check it out. It's staged well, fully furnished. Everything looks fantastic. They make a deal with the realty agent. Settled. He pays cash for it. Boom, he's got his property. Now, it's funny because when they first went to go check it out, Joyce wasn't feeling it. His wife didn't have a good feeling about the place, didn't really like it. Kind of tried to talk him out of it, but he was like, nope, this is it. This is what I want. It's what we're going to do. So he went and got it anyway. 10-acre property, had all the outbuildings that he needed. He was real excited about it. So moving day comes, and the weirdness, the high strangeness, the rabbit holes started day one. And that's one of the things that really fascinates me with this story. Day one, they get there, they're driving the moving truck, they pull up, go inside to check it out, and everything is still in the house. The owners hadn't touched anything, fully furnished, appliances, bedroom, everything. Everything is in there. Dishes in the cupboard, fully packed out. So John is a little irritated about that. He's got his truck of stuff to move in. So he calls up the realtor and kind of lays into him a little bit, wants to know what's going on. The realtor tells him he'll handle it. He'll call the previous owners, go and spend a day doing something, spend a few hours out, and come back and it'll be taken care of, kind of a thing. So irritated, they go out, they get some food, watch a movie, spend the day. And they come back later that afternoon and the house is empty. So they're pretty impressed. You know, the entire house completely empty. Didn't know how they did it. So they're looking around. John's kind of doing a walk through, trying to figure out where everything's going. And he happens to notice the outdoor pool. Now, I don't know if the pool was filled or not. It didn't specify in any of the things that I could find. But everything that was inside the house had been put into the pool. We're talking all the appliances, the furniture, everything was basically thrown into the pool. John states that it was a full-size swimming pool, a diving pool, he called it. So this was a pretty big-size outdoor pool, and it was completely filled with all the house furnishings. And so, again, John's like, what the heck is this, right? Like, can you imagine that? And so he calls the realty agent up guy again and goes, hey, what's going on? I got here and everything's in the pool. And the guy's like, I don't know. I couldn't even get a hold of anybody to come out and handle this. He's like, so I don't know what happened. But then he pulls the most shadiest thing I've ever heard, where he's like, but you know what? You paid cash for it. It's your problem now. Don't call me with this again. And so now John has to deal with how to get all this stuff out of the pool, what to do with it all. So they spend their first few weeks dealing with that. They get their stuff moved in, they get it going. So right off the bat, there's weird stuff happening there. I don't know how I would handle that. You guys let me know how you would handle that in the comments. Let's get some comments going here. So that was the very first thing. The next thing that happened a little bit later in, again, things settled in. Joyce is back to work. It's about an hour or so each way. So John's getting everything settled. And one day he's getting stuff settled and he sees a gentleman, for lack of a better word, coming up the driveway. No clue who he is. So John, being the rancher that he is, makes sure he's got some protection and takes a step outside and then calls the guy out and says, hey, can I help you? And the guy is like, well, I live here. And he's kind of like, no, I just bought the place. Can you explain what's going on here? And the gentleman says, well, that building back there, and he points to the building that John is going to be using as a tack room for feed and tack and stuff for the horses. And he's like, I live back there and I help out around here. And John had never heard about this. He didn't know what was going on. So he tries to get some clarification. He's like, well, what do you do here? And the guy looks him dead in the face and goes, well, I kill the monsters here. Now, they describe this guy, and this is going to be in his terms mostly, John's terms. He says he would look like an old, rough Vietnam veteran that maybe hasn't come back and fared very well. And so, he's probably got some kind of fatigues on, looking a little gruff and grizzled, maybe looking like he's homeless. But he's also carrying a machete with a leather strap on it so he can hold it onto his wrist. This guy's telling John that his job on the property is to kill the monsters. So John's thinking this guy's not all there. Tells the guy that he won't be needing his services. So if he has any belongings, to collect them and head on out. And so the guy does, but as he's leaving, he basically turns around and tells John, he's going to be real sorry if he doesn't have anybody to kill the monsters for him. So part 2 of what the heck is going on at this property already before things even get going with them. So the strangeness, the weird stuff really did start right away. And this is the story from here on out. It gets kind of chronologically mushy a little bit. There's a lot of individual tales, individual stories, but the time frame on exactly when everything happened is not quite as clear cut. I listened to about 4 or 5 different podcasts. I listened to some of his specific interviews. I checked out the Facebook page. And this had been going on for 20 some years, guys. Like I said, it started in 1996 and it went on for 20 some years, and they never left during all this strange stuff. So we'll talk a lot about different things happening, but not necessarily in any specific order other than those 2 events, because those are classified as the first 2 things. It seemed like things started light and then kind of escalated. So that's kind of how I'm going to take it. John says he's heard this story before, so he's heard of Stardust Ranch. If you have any comments or anything you want to throw in there, John Barfield from Georgia, please feel free. We love interaction here. We love talking with the audience. If you have a specific question, go ahead and throw some caps locks on there for me so I can notice it. So essentially the first things that they started noticing happening, basic things started disappearing. Hey, where did I put the remote? I can't find the remote. Shows up 2 days later, in a drawer somewhere. They never put it there. That kind of stuff. Or, looking for a power cord for the laptop or the computer, can't find it, no clue where it is. Ends up being in a piece of luggage that you check 3 times. Just kind of stuff like that. Just kind of the annoying basic stuff that is usually associated with poltergeist. Poltergeist. Some people have associated that kind of behavior with Bigfoot and stuff on their property, different things like that. So that was one of the things that started happening. And also, they were having a lot of trouble with their electronics. Batteries draining really fast, way faster than they should. Light bulbs burning out. I think at one point he stated that they go through about 3 car batteries per vehicle every year at this property. So a lot of issues there with that kind of stuff as well. Deanna King, welcome. Haven't seen you. Welcome. So that was another thing, just a lot of electronics frazzling out. I'm picturing microwaves blowing every now and then, stuff like that. And then outside, one of the biggest thing was orbs or UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them. Lots and lots and lots of them, especially there's like some orange ones all the time. Now they did clarify that they aren't that far away from an air base. And so some of the stuff they're seeing could be, aircraft or military, things like that. But for the most part, it seems to be just, they're just calling them UFOs and orbs. They've got some great pictures. They got great videos. Like I said, check out his Facebook page. I got some that we're going to look at later on. I didn't capture the video through the slides, but I did capture pictures of it all. So then that's kind of what was going on. So nothing too crazy, just almost like haunted stuff, very basic, nothing to be concerned about, just kind of strange stuff. Well, John gets things going. I'm not sure what the time frame is on here, maybe 6 months or a year. He's got his horses up and running. He's working his rescue. He's got eight Rottweilers that he's rescued. Has them, set up in their different pens and everything. Standing Stones, welcome. Joey, this ranch is located just outside of Phoenix, Arizona, in the Rainbow Valley section. It's not hidden. You can look it up online. You can actually get the exact address if you want. I don't know what the current status is. We'll talk about that here towards the end. Uh, but things are going smooth, other than we talked about what was going on, and then one night something really bad happened, and they didn't find out about it till the next day. Joyce is gone and off to work, starting her commute. John's out making his rounds, checking on the horses, getting them fed up, checking on the dogs, doing what he does with them. And he comes to the pen of his favorite Rottweiler, and it's open, and the dog's not there. And he's a little confused because he's pretty sure he shut that gate. He has a routine he follows, and then doesn't understand why it'd be open. But okay, so he goes looking, and not too far away, he comes across the dog. And I'll try to say it not very graphically, because we never know who's going to listen on this, but it's Halloween and it's kind of creepy. The way he described the dog was it looked like it had been run over by a steamroller. Like in the old, Looney Tunes cartoons, where the cartoon is run over just flat, absolutely flattened out on the ground. But what was very odd and very strange about it was there was no mess around the dog's body. Absolutely no mess at all. There's no blood, no nothing around it. You can't figure it out. He can't figure out why they didn't hear anything. If somebody had been there, if somebody had opened the doors and taken the dogs, all the other dogs would have lit up. They were all right there in the kennels, all in a row. So there was no sound. Completely devastated him. This was his favorite dog of the ones that he'd rescued. And so that was kind of the beginning of the bad stuff, if we want to put it that way. Grab a drink here real quick. Hope everybody had a fantastic Halloween. Got out and got to spend time with friends and family, if that's what you do. John says, my brother-in-law is from Arizona. He's the only one I know who can not wear a watch. He drains the batteries. Yeah, there's some people that do that. That is a true phenomenon. Joey, that's sad. That is sad. That's horrible. Over the years, they'd had a few dogs come up with injuries, but they didn't specify any other dogs having been attacked like that. But they did specify that several of their horses in those beginning years they found were actually found in very similar states. So not only was it happening to some of the dogs, it was happening to some of the horses as well. So in the meantime, as this stuff is happening to the dogs and the horses, they're noticing injuries on some of the horses and some of the dogs. Scratches, scrapes, burns. They didn't really go into a lot of description on them. Just that they didn't look like they were predation marks. They didn't look like they were from animals. Got to adjust that. It's driving me nuts. There we go. So he's saying that this looked like surgical stuff, precision stuff, something people would do. And then him and Joyce started waking up with bruises and marks and what they described as brands or burns, scabs, cuts on their arms, and things like that. So it started happening to them. And again, I'm going to keep stressing it. We don't have a timeline on this. This is a progression over months and probably a couple of years as all this is happening. Joey Youngkin, our pets are babies like family. Yeah, exactly. Couldn't even imagine finding them that way. Absolutely. And he's rescuing them, right? So it's even compounded because he saved them from unideal conditions, and he's trying to nurse them and bring them back and bring them life and joy and happiness again, right? And then something like this happens. So while this is going on, they're still seeing the orbs. They're still having all this stuff happening in the house. Um, One of the things I didn't mention, because I didn't get all the stats on it, but I'll go ahead and bring it up, was when they first started getting the business up and running, they had to run phone lines, right? They had to get the business line set in and all this kind of stuff. And so they called the telecom company, made an appointment, and nobody showed up. This happened a couple of different times. And I heard this a few different ways. The way that sounded good best to me, I don't know if that's how it happened, but we'll go with it, was finally a telecom guy comes out, but he's sitting in the driveway and he's not getting out of the truck. He's just sitting there 15, 20, 30 minutes, just sitting there. So John goes out and says, "Hey, man, what's going on?" He's like, "Are you here to do this?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm here to do this." He's like, "But I don't want to get out of my truck." And John's like, "Why? Why not?" Well, apparently, this property is known for being strange, having weird things happen, having bad things happen. And this guy was a local who'd been in there for a long time. And so he told John the story. Apparently, the house was built by a wealthy guy who built it for his wife as a surprise. So he got the land, went ahead and built it up, and then brought the wife out there. She didn't like it. And so she refused to live there. And I guess it ultimately led to a divorce because she just wouldn't do it and he wanted to live there and the whole 9 yards. And it passed on from family to family. And apparently, lots of tragedy in these families. And they all reported the strange and odd things happening as well. Mostly things that had to do, it seemed, with entities, ghosts, poltergeist activity, weird stuff like that, and monsters. Until finally it got passed on to John and Joyce. So there's a history there. You can look it up. It's on a lot of the podcasts that you'll find about it. I'm not going to get into it because it's not really completely pertinent to our story. But just there was a history there that they weren't told about at all. So then we get into the meat of what Stardust Ranch is all about and what they're famous for. And this is where you got to kind of put on your incredulity hat, give it its grain of salt, because this is stretching it. But as we talk about on the show all the time, there's no proof against it. There's no facts. We got pictures. We can't just discount it because we don't believe it. You know what I mean? We have to give it some credit and do our own research on it and decide if it's credible for ourselves or not. But him and Joyce were laying in bed one night. Apparently, Joyce had a problem with some sleep apnea. It was undiagnosed. She didn't have a CPAP machine yet, so she was snoring really loud, keeping John awake. John couldn't get to sleep. He was having a terrible night. He's laying there in bed, and all of a sudden he feels something touch his arm, like kind of up in here, up to his elbow, and kind of cold and not slimy, but just kind of weird feeling, fleshy feeling. And he jumps up and freaks out, and he looks, and there is what he describes as a small gray alien. Typical gray, about 4 foot tall, standing there. And as we said before, John is a rancher. He likes to make sure he's prepared for everything. So he happens to have a small tire knocker, or like a small 2 foot wooden bat, basically, sitting there next to his bed. So he grabs it and beans this thing across the head and basically knocks it out. And then he sees two other ones standing at the end of the bed. These two other grays go grab their third companion there, and then they just kind of phase out and disappear. Well, of course, John wakes up Joyce, tells her what's going on, and she says, "You're absolutely nuts," and basically rolls over and goes back to bed. Ever since then, the war with the aliens was on. They'd show up from time to time. and it's really hearing all of them. I mean, there's so many little individual stories throughout it that he talks about. But it became part of their life. Not every day, not every week, but they would show up around the house. Apparently, they would just kind of be there. And they developed this animosity between the Grays and John and Joyce and his family. And it's funny hearing some of the stories about how, like, they'd show up and, they had several cats in the house. The cats wouldn't like them, so the cats would attack them. And the little Grays would attack the cats back, kind of back and forth. And um, basically what ended up happening is John and Joyce figure that this is what's been going on with the animals. This is what's been going on with them, leaving bruises, leaving the scars, leaving the scratches on them and the animals outside. So while all this is going on, remember, all the other activity is still happening. So all this is going on. Joyce is going, that's it. I've had it. I want to get out of here. She eventually sees them as well. She wants to leave, and John's going, we can't. All of our money is stuck in here. Even if we short sell it, we're going to have to come up with another few $1 million to find another ranch like this. And so he pretty much just pulls up on this attitude of, nah, this is my land. This is my property, and these guys aren't going to chase me off of it. If I can get a good deal and sell it, then I will. But I'm going to defend, hearth and home. And so he does. And so he basically starts waging a war against these little gray aliens. As the years go on, he claims to encounter several different types of aliens on that property, including like tall grays and some mantis ones and different things like that as it goes on. But his main issue is these little grays. They're the ones that come into the house. They're the ones that are attacking him. He's tried firearms against them to no avail. Basically, you couldn't kill these guys. They'd get injured, and then the other guys would come around and they'd phase out. Tried baseball bats, lead pipes, firearms, all that kind of stuff. Well, one day, John's driving through town, and there's a truck in front of him that's got a bunch of stuff in the back, including a Christmas tree. And apparently this truck is taking some corners a little fast. And a Christmas tree falls out into the roadway. And what he described as a samurai sword falls out of the truck. He stops and picks them both up and brings them to the house. And, he's got this Christmas tree and he's got the sword. Well, one time when these guys show up, he decides he's going to grab that samurai sword and go after this guy. And apparently it worked. He was able to decapitate the alien that he was fighting. And that finally, he figured out, is what could kill these creatures, but you have to cut their heads off. So that became his new weapon of choice. Whenever these Greys show up and he has to fight them and he's in reach, he grabs a samurai sword. And that's what he uses to fight them. So now you're going to ask, oh man, he's hacking up these aliens. This is garbage, right? Like it doesn't sound realistic. I mean, sounds like this guy's off his rocker. So what's the first thing we're going to say? Okay, well, where's your proof? Right? If you're doing this, why don't you get DNA tested? Why don't you send it to a lab and see what's going on? Well, he did. He did. And got it all tested. Yeah, see Joey right there. Does he keep the proof? He started sending it to a lab and they were doing testing on it. And as the results come out, this is one of those things where I heard two different responses. One podcast said that John had changed his story from what was the contents of the blood. And now I never saw where John did that. The only point I heard on that was the podcast saying he did. So I'm not going to say he changed his story. What John was saying is the blood was made of was essentially blood and chlorophyll, which is the energy producing cell in plants. So essentially, he's saying it's a hybrid. The blood itself was kind of a hybrid of human blood and plant blood, for lack of a better word. And that was kind of brownish and kind of greasy. And so they had the stuff at the lab. The lab was doing workups and write-ups on them. As he got samples, they taught him and told him how to pack them properly, so chain of command was kept. And they sent it to this lab. I forget what the name of the scientist was, Levergood, something along those lines. But as they're getting ready to release this information, tragically and suddenly, somehow, some way, the scientist dies. And his lab is destroyed and everything goes missing. And shortly thereafter, within a week, the scientist's wife is also found deceased. So I wasn't able to deep dive that part of it to go back and see if I could find any obituaries or anything about that. You know, guys, that's normally something I would do. But I wasn't trying to get that far into it. I'm kind of leaving it up to you guys. You can find it, find the name, dig into it. Find out where it is, see if you can find obituaries, see if you can find newspaper clippings, but check it out. But apparently that's what happened with the lab. And so that kind of sketched him out a little bit. So at this point, from what he says, he has preserved his own specimens, but has not tried to get them into another lab. Because shortly after that happening, that's when MIB started showing up, the classic Men in Black, government agencies, the helicopters, the whole 9 yards, guys, you know. That started happening. So, as we would all assume, now the government's aware it's going on, and so they're getting involved and trying to stop everything. It's kind of wild, man. This whole story is absolutely insane. Next, they talk about portals opening up on the property, so it's becoming a portal place, and he thinks that's what's happening. It's an area of high energy. You know, Skinwalker Ranch is supposed to be a portal. There's other places that are supposed to have naturally occurring portals where people or entities, beings that know how to use them, manipulate them, are able to go into different areas. And he says that's what's happening. And apparently, and I don't know how this research happened, there was some research done. He talked to some people. I don't know if they were psychics. I don't know if they were energy readers. I don't know where he got the information. But he's settled on the fact that this particular portal on his property, the main one, is a special portal because not only is it dimensional, it's also a time portal. Apparently, according to him, some portals are only good for going through different dimensions, multiverse, so to speak, where the occasional rare one you can also use to manipulate when you're going somewhere. So you could technically go back in time or go to a specific point that you want to go to on the timeline. Don't know how that works. I've never researched that part of it. That's what he was saying. So we're just going to give you the information that he put out there. And so they would see things. A lot of the things that happen on the property never happened in the house. They would happen out on the property. They could see it off in the distance. One of those absolutely fascinating ones that I didn't know about until earlier today was one they called the Michelin Man. And apparently they described this entity as looking like either the Michelin Man, for those of you that know what that is, or kind of like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. So they said basically he was big and had the round folds like that, about 10 to 11 feet tall, but he wasn't white, he was grayish. And every now and then they would see him like walking down across the field kind of on the back acreage and stuff. Every now and then, and he'll go into a portal. Apparently, this property has like portals that pop up everywhere, other than the main portal that happens in the sky, right? So portals will pop up in the kitchen, the living room, anywhere on the property, and all this kind of stuff, and things will come in and out of them. So I don't know if this is one of those stories that gets better over time and they add more elements to it, if you know what I mean. As people ask questions, it kind of gets incorporated into it. Oh yeah, we have this, we have that. I don't know. There's a lot of people that say that, you know, this whole story is about making money, right? The problem I have with that theory is they didn't really make a lot of money off of this. They eventually wrote a book with the help of an author, but that wasn't until the 2000s. So we're talking probably 20, almost 20 years after the fact of all this happening. There was some TV shows came out. Was it Ghost Adventures? Was Zach came out there and did some stuff? Bigelow, if you know who Bigelow is from Skinwalker Ranch, his team came out and did some stuff. Rumor has it that he was going to make an offer to purchase, but something happened. Don't know what. Nobody specified anywhere. And he just kind of ghosted after a week and never got in touch with them again. Take that as you will. And so this is what's been happening, and all the way up till a couple years ago. So that's your basic story, and I was good with that. We'd have a fun time with that. But then I found their Facebook page, and we've got pictures. I only took a few to kind of whet your guys' appetite a little bit with some of these pictures. They are on public Facebook pages, so no issue at all with showing them here. We're not going to get dinged on them or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. We're going to get back to the beginning. Oh, come on now. All right. Yep, that's good there. Full screen. All right, so here's the man himself. This is John. Again, he degree, gentleman, educated, psychiatric therapy is what he specialized in. So we're going to kind of go through a lot of this stuff again, not really sequential order, but just as I kind of found stuff on his Facebook page and some of the comments, you can see him interacting with his followers there. I found it really interesting. I highly suggest if you guys are interested in the story, this is a good story. If you're not an experienced researcher, you're not an experienced digger, this stuff is pretty easy to dig into to find what's being said about the story. Tons of podcasts out there. He's done several interviews out there. They have the book out there on Amazon. It's like $10-20 if you really want to go that far with it. This will be a really fun one for you guys to kind of get into and do some investigating and some researching yourself. At this point, they don't allow people out to their property anymore, but that was always an option for some people too. So there's good old John. And again, his dream was to rescue these horses. So here's some of his horses that he was working with, some beautiful animals there. And the puppies. Oh, look at that face. It's one of his Rotties that he rescued. And here is Joyce. Trying to watch the lag on the screen there, so I'm not calling Joyce and having other pictures on the line. That's his wife. So the story revolves around these two. All right, so here's a picture of John. He took a new UFO taken while out watering the horses. You can see it back there over the mountains, the four lights. And he has 20 or 30 pictures of these things. I only grabbed a couple of them. Here is some kind of sculpture of what he describes the gray aliens to be. This is not supposed to be a live gray alien. I saw some people posting it like, oh my gosh, there's a picture of one. No, that's not one. But that's what he's talking about when he refers to the little gray aliens. Oh, did I go too far? Hold on. I don't have my mouse with me. Grizzly ended up with my mouse in our travels. I got to get a new one here. All right. Come on. There we go. All right. Here's a picture of some bruises. You can see further down. He said when the Greys come at night and they attack him and his wife, when they can get their filthy little hands on them, they'll leave bruises. So he's got pictures of the bruises like that. And they said, wow, that looks horrible. And he goes, yeah, but that's nothing compared to the holes, burns on my legs, and punctures left from the instruments that they use. Painful to say the least. And there he's got some pictures of, they look like puncture marks, with the puncture in the middle and then kind of bruised around the edges there. I know this is formatted differently than how I normally present it, but that's because I literally just took this off of Facebook. His photos are public, at least these ones. You can go through and read the comments. People are asking questions. He's answering them. And to me, that adds a lot of validity to what he's saying. The pictures plus the description. At the same time, if you've done any type of ranch work, farm work, outside work like that on a full-time basis, you know you get cuts and bruises and scratches and punctures and this kind of stuff. So can I say, wow, that's definitely something from an alien? Absolutely not. But he's presenting it as evidence himself and he's willing to discuss it. So that says a lot of him as a witness. Here's the conversation. Brad asked John, what is your guess as what they want? He says they want to continue to have the ranch all to themselves without us there. They have successfully had the place to themselves from 1977 until 1996 when we moved there. So here he's talking about some kind of gap in time of ownership. I don't know how that happened. That wasn't part of the original discussion. So there are some inconsistencies in there, but they could very easily be explained if somebody could go through and dig and look at records and stuff like that. Has the government tried to seize the place from you? Do they take you seriously? He said, seriously enough to confirm that they watch it closely and they have other so-called neighbors watching as well. I know this because they've already introduced themselves and asked me how they can deal with the phenomenon. Apparently, according to one who has been attacked already, she can't deal with it much longer. So it sounds like the neighbors, at least the close neighbors, also have some of this phenomenon going on. I don't know to what extent. There's been no real collaboration other than what John has said. Collaboration, that's not the right word. Confirmation. Other than John saying, yeah, this neighbor said this neighbor said that. So here's an interesting one, guys. He claims on occasion get photos of these guys. So here's one. These occurred when one just appeared and put its head in our reality from a slightly out of phase dimension and literally looked right into the camera, then blinked out. It scared the photographer enough the person ran to find me. I was feeding horses at the time at the back of the ranch, but there were two other witnesses that saw it occur and vouched for the authenticity of the event. I can't be 100% certain on this one, but I remember something like this happening in one of the documentaries that I watched about Stardust Ranch a long time ago. So that may be what this photo is, but basically it's saying he can phase in and out of our dimension, and that's what this is. And they caught a picture of him. So I think that's a very interesting photograph. As you can see, if you kind of take a look at it, it has the classic shape of, the alien gray. But at the same time, I was looking at it and I said, that almost looks like a cat meme that we see all over the place. So could it potentially be some kind of Photoshop and that's actually a cat's head? Right? Because if you look, you got the eyes, the nose coming down, which would be the mouth on the alien. And then what would be where the neck goes to the small would be the mouth of the cat. So, this is the problem with pictures is they can be interpreted a lot of different ways. How do you see it? Does that look like the fuzzy photograph of an alien popping in, or does that look like some kind of hoax with it? I can see it either way. Here's a close-up view of it. So what they're saying again is they're phasing in from another dimension through one of these portals, and his head popped up right in front of the camera. They were able to get a picture of it, and that's what that is. So what do you see? What do you think? So here he is talking about the cats. It says the Greys definitely don't enjoy dealing with our cats because they attack them as soon as they see them. And it has become sort of a sport for them to chase them the second they see them. Beyond this annoyance, but not really much of a threat, they come and go as they want to. There isn't much I can do about it unless the circumstances elevate to physical confrontation. And I try to avoid that as much as possible. And though we see them regularly, we just don't react unless there is a direct conflict. So basically, it's kind of we're going to ignore it unless they actually come and try and do something to us. Is kind of his attitude on this. That's how he's coping with it. If they come at us, they try and do tests on us. They try and, abduct us. There's a lot of abductions, apparently. They don't talk a lot about it. So he doesn't fight them unless he has to. But apparently, over the 20 plus years that they've been having this issue, he has been able to eliminate 19 specific of the little gray entities. That's not bad, one a year. He's expounding on what dead is. Something I've realized what we call dead is merely a transition. We think of everything in linear terms. That is the only one perspective. I believe from dealing with ETs, we don't have the entire grip on how things work. We've talked about that before. I believe there's an interdimensional aspect that allows those who have mastered it to move around in time and space and makes it much less finite than what everything possible. He's seen too many examples of it firsthand. He may not have a complete understanding, but he knows enough to know the human version is not entirely a full explanation either. I wish I would have copied when he wrote this down, because this is a lot of where current research is leading people, not just in 14 and paranormal stuff. A lot of, physics, quantum physics, string theory is leading into that same kind of direction. If he was talking about this in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, then he's kind of ahead of the game on there a little bit. Levon asked, do they mention how the horses react lately? No, not lately. We kind of stopped hearing stuff a couple years ago. But apparently, the only negative things that happened to the horses were really in the beginning. The first 3 that were found deceased and mutilated. And after that, there weren't anymore. And so the horses kind of just do their thing. On occasion, they'll find scratches or burn marks, different things on them. But overall, the horses seem to react fine. No big issue with them. All right, this is supposedly the aerial view of the large portal opening in the sky to let ships pass in and out of dimensional space over the ranch. Apparently, the little thing there at the bottom is the top of one of the farm equipment that he has, a corral, I believe. Part of the chute they use to kind of corral the animals in. This is happening in the sky. I don't know why. This is a portal. Doesn't really get into it a whole lot. But apparently this is a picture of one of the portals. I'm kind of looking back at the phone for the comments. I got this on full screen so you guys can see it better. All right, samurai sword. Somebody asked whose blood. John says, this is from a gray that I killed on 3/13/17 that attacked me just outside my carport door. This is one of the 19. This is not the first one. This is A1. And if you go to his Facebook page, John Edmounds, just as you can see there, there's multiple photos. They all kind of look the same, so I didn't grab them all. Basically, you're just seeing stains like this. But again, fascinating. He's got photographs. Is there anything proving that that photograph is blood from a gray? Absolutely not. It's just his word. But at the same time, that's more than most people have ever come up with as far as photographs. So either he's really good at what he's doing, telling the story and providing background support with it, or, you know, there's a lot of truth to it. And that's the stuff that he said they get tested. Somebody had asked after that encounter, did they get more aggressive? John replied, they have always been very aggressive to me because they know I will kill them the minute I see them. Because of the fact that they have hurt my wife, the horses, the dogs, they kill the cat and hurt me more times than I can count. Then he goes on another post with different pictures to say, I have a tendency to minimize the battles here. I don't like to admit that I have suffered as hard as I have, and a few dozen times I have been seriously wounded. So apparently the crease marks in his arm there are battle wounds. A lot of people in the comments were reading this and looking at the few scabs up there further down his arm towards his wrist there. But in reality, he's talking about these scars in his arm. He doesn't go into detail here about those battles or anything. I'm assuming in the book he might. But this was 7 years ago. This was so 97, right? They didn't even have a book out then, so this isn't something he did for a book. This is way before that. So I thought that was very interesting, these battle wounds. These scrapes on his, I believe that's a leg. 2017, he says he was dragged and left 10 acres from the main house into the desert. He did mention that they do have some abduction cases on him and his wife, but they're very personal. They don't like to talk about them. They will briefly mention them as here. In their book, they briefly mention them, but they don't go into detail. But this is pictures showing scrapes from where he was dragged. I thought that was interesting, so I got a few of those pictures. Here's an interesting one, right arm just below the elbow. Some people said it looks like a wire implant. Could be just a scar. He does say in the comments that he can't go through the x-rays at the airport. He can't have MRIs done because apparently he's got all kinds of little metal implants in his body from these things. So is that just one of those expounding on something somebody said to kind of create some more detail that seems a little outlandish, or is that, you know, legit? It's really hard to say. Here's an example of one of the wounds from a contact experience with E.T. Graves from 2017. In response to Robert Collins outing me about having PTSD from 22 years of hostile encounters on the Stardust Ranch, this actually is worse than it appears. This is my right leg from the knee down on the outside of his leg. So that looks like scarring. This have been from one of his battles or from the things that happen to him when he's asleep. I don't know. But again, I'll bring it up. He does work on a ranch, a cattle ranch, or a horse ranch, horse rescue, big dogs. Could this just be stuff that's happening to him while he's out there? Is he getting injured working on the ranch, and then once it heals, he's claiming it's alien attack? I don't know. There's no way to prove it. No way to disprove it. Here is another UFO/orb picture. Levon asks, why do they stay? Well, John was asked that many times, and basically, financial reasons. He put his entire life savings into this ranch. It was not a moneymaker ranch. That's not what it was for. It was to allow him to pursue his goal of having animal rescue for horses. Uh, they were going to rescue horses and then also maybe use it as a therapeutic ranch for people that would do horse therapy, equine therapy. And basically, they just didn't have the funds. They sunk everything into this. It has been put up for sale a few times. He has tried to sell it, but without selling it, he said they wouldn't have the money to set up operations anywhere else. And so that's why he's had to stay. Lots and lots of pictures like this. All right, this is an interesting set. I want you to look at these. I'm not going to tell you what they're claiming. I want you guys to look at these and tell me what you're seeing. What do you think this is? What does it look like to you? Got a few different ones here. Let you look. All right. So according to John, in 2020, this was the newest ET visiting the ranch. Now, according to him, this materialized in his living room. This was the head of the creature. It floated around the wall, kind of up to the ceiling, and came down in front of his face and looked at him. Just this close. Now, for me, I'm not going to lie. I see a reflection on the wall from something. I can't tell you what. Is it something hanging in the window? Is it a flashlight with a weird cover? I don't know, but I see this as light reflecting on the wall where he's saying, no, it's actually a dimensional thing up away from the wall. So I don't know. This here just looks like a zoomed in picture of this one. But that's what he's calling. Now this is what he referred to as a mantis. Some people on the Facebook page went through this and put some filters on this, so maybe it's a bird beak or bird type entity. What was interesting is he said this thing was real enough in front of him, and he identified it as a mantis-like creature, the pinks and the blues for some reason. And he spoke to it. He said it had an air of authority or power to it. And he basically requested that this thing, or these beings in this class, try and control the Greys and stop them from coming in and attacking and being so aggressive. They don't want that. And according to him, ever since he did that, the interactions and the aggressiveness has come down a lot. It's really de-escalated. So that's what he's saying. To me, I see a reflection of light. Wasn't there, didn't see it happen, so I really can't tell you, right? And this is where he tells us about that. He says, this particular entity seemed to listen and acquiesce to my request to control the Greys, put an end to their raising hell on the ranch. Beyond that, nothing I am aware of. I am grateful for the management or whatever it is they've been doing. And Gladys Smith asks, is that a magnet on your wall? Legit question. John said, no, that is the entity. It appeared a few inches in front of the wall in the office area and let me photograph it repeatedly. Somebody said video it next time, right? That's always the answer. And he said it happened so quickly I barely got to 4 frames of it. He didn't mention it here, but basically this thing moved around when it got in front of him. He asked permission to photograph it. And it gave him his permission. And as he clicked the last photograph, it phased out. So, severe foot ankle injury from hand-to-hand fight here on the ranch. So more injuries from fighting the aliens. Here's an interesting story. This is not the first story with a bat. This is a different one. It says, I had 2 Greys try and drag me out of bed about 3 a.m. I reached over and grabbed my aluminum baseball bat and beat one in the head until it disappeared. but the other one held on and tried to force some sort of object into my ankle. I pulled it up to my chest and held it by the neck, and then jammed my left thumb into one of its compound eyes and pressed as hard as I could until it began to convulse, and then it disappeared. So that's how he's saying he got that ankle injury. He was trying to force some kind of object into his ankle. This is an interesting one. This is not alien related. This is the entity, the poltergeist, as I call it. Talked about things disappearing, things moving, electronic issues going on. That was still all going on while they were battling these aliens. So it's kind of a continual, you never knew what you were going to get. According to this post and series of pictures, the entity that stalks this ranch projected the boiling hot soup out of the microwave and hit me in the face with it, shattering the bowl and scalded me with the soup. The broken glass got in both eyes as well. That was a Pyrex. That was a microwave-safe bowl. And apparently he was heating up cream of mushroom soup. He's got several pictures, but it's just the soup all over the place. So that's what he's saying there. The poltergeist basically threw the bowl of hot soup at him. I was looking for some normal pictures. This was one. That was great. John and Joyce with a classic book from Zechariah Sitchin, right? And then I read this, and this is where I'm kind of going, man. And it's weird because some of the alien stuff, I'm like, oh, I can believe that. And then you get something like this, I'm like, I don't know. Right? The book thing is a little weird. That in itself sounds weird, doesn't it? He said this was June 18th, 2021. The book just appeared through the portal in the Stardust Ranch. This is the first time any contemporary object ever appeared through a portal that I can recall. Scared the heck out of my Shih Tzu, Sheza, who thought somebody had thrown the book at her. So essentially, they're hanging out in the living room, and this book flies out of a portal and lands in front of the fireplace and almost hits their dog. That book right there, Zechariah Stitchin, come flying out of a portal and almost hits their dog. Then somebody was asking about it, and he goes on and says, I think it might be a message from the other side, from a very good friend of mine. He was a Stitchin fan, was always quoting from various passages, blah, 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 blah. Apparently, this person was the real-life individual. I don't know if he's talking about the very good friend that passed, or he's talking about Stitchin. It says he was an Egypt scholar, Vatican scholar, introduced me to many important individuals who have taught me a great deal over the last 30 years, so I'm thinking it's his friend. He was the real-life individual. The movie Man Who Stared at Goats was written about. Oh, excuse me. And he was a mentor for me for many years and taught me and certified as a hypnotherapist. That's a great book and fun movie, Men Who Stared at Goats. You guys should check it out. And we talked about it on the show before. And so he's basically saying that book flew out of nowhere into his living room. Unfortunately, John Edmounds passed away February 27th of 22. And they had this GoFundMe page up. Anyone willing to help his wife save their home from foreclosure, please go below and help out. So that's kind of a timeline we got from Facebook. So very interesting stuff, guys. I really think it's a great story, even if it's not real. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. It's still an epic story if you think about it. Dude gets a house, wife doesn't want it. He's like, whatever, we're doing this. Ultimate karma. Crap starts happening right off the bat. Next thing you know, he's like having Jedi samurai fights with gray aliens. I mean, come on. Great story. They need to make a movie out about this and not even tell people it's supposedly based on a true story. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Levon asked, have they tested for radiation levels? I would think they would slowly begin to get sick. I don't know if they did or not. I would assume that they had, simply because that would make sense, right? And I know progressively there was some cancer, there was some health issues between him and his wife. But I mean, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do because people get sick anyway. So I can't really say, yep, that was definitely to do with it. You can't. There's so much more to the story, guys. I'm already over an hour, which whatever. We kind of do our own thing here. So much more to dig into. There's so many more pictures you guys can find. They got the book on Amazon, Stardust Ranch. Now, I will warn you, when you're doing your research, it is not the Stardust Ranch in Nevada. It's the Stardust Ranch in Arizona. Okay. Big difference. Big difference. You don't want to go there. So Stardust Ranch, Arizona. Check it out. Do some of your own research. Have some fun with it. Enjoy the story. Happy Halloween, everybody. Any other questions? Anybody else that's with me live have anything they want to bring up, ask, comments? Let's have it. Joey, thank you. I love your Bigfoot shirt. Thank you. I'm not sure where I got this one. I've got so many now. I think it might have been one my fiance Jennifer bought for me. Very comfortable. One of my favorites. Absolutely love it. Patriotic Bigfoot. I've got a few of patriotic ones. I've got a vote for Bigfoot 24. Lots of different ones. Thank you guys for showing up. Next week, I've already got the show topic planned. I'm hitting the ground running, guys. I'm hitting the ground running. We're going to talk Nephilim next week. Thursday Night Live, 10 p.m. Eastern, guys. And I'm not talking just the frou-frou Nephilim that we're hearing all over Facebook. We're going to really talk about what Nephilim is, what it isn't, sources of it, where do they come from, kind of a thing. What's the historical background on them? What I think they are. What possible influence they have had in our world, our culture, and everything as well. So it's going to be, I think, a pretty heavy topic. I'm going to start researching right away. I'm going to try and pull up some copies. I used to have this great copy that had the books of Enoch in it, and it had excerpts from the Holy King James Bible in it as well. And they were side by side, and so you could really compare what they were talking about because there's a lot of congruency there. So you could read this chapter and this section of the Bible in Genesis, and then this section in the Book of Enoch, and then kind of they did this back and forth play as kind of an interpretive thing. It's absolutely awesome. I'm gonna see if I can find something like that again. If not, we'll just do it on our own. We'll check it out. Joey, I sent Grizz something on the Minnesota Wild Man the other day. Cool. He doesn't let me know. Me and Grizz are kind of the odd couple. He does his thing, I do mine thing. He'll hit me up sometimes and say, hey, somebody emailed me this. They want you to check it out. Or, he's got some other people that you might have him look at it. So keep an eye out for it. Have I heard of the Minnesota Wild Man? Well, are we talking just another name for a Bigfoot, just a colloquialism? Or are you talking the Iceman that was thrown around and shown at the fairs and stuff back in the days in the 50s and 60s or whatever it was? What specifically are you talking about? And then I can tell you if I've heard of it. Chances are I have, though. I've been researching for TN topics for over 30 years now. There's not much I haven't heard of at some point or another. Any other questions out there, guys? Remember, Nephilim, if you have anything you want me to discuss, any specific questions, hit me up on Facebook. Just Justin Decker. You can get a message to me through Grizzly, any one of our Facebook pages that we're on. Joey the Iceman. Yeah, Minnesota Iceman's a really cool one. I've read a lot up on the topic. It's interesting. There's a lot of parallels between the Minnesota Iceman and supposedly the what do they call it? The Oklahoma Bigfoot body that they found with Dyer and Biscardi and all those hoaxers. Some interesting parallels there if you dig into it. But yeah, we can do a show on the Iceman sometime if you want. I'll write that down. I like keeping track of stuff. Because a lot of people don't know the whole story there. They only hear part of it that, oh, it's a hoax, or oh, it's not a hoax, it's the real thing. But what I tell people is it might be both. Because you got to look into it deeper. You got to go down that rabbit hole, right? So we can check that out. All right. I rambled on enough. If you guys have any more questions, too late. Send them to the email. Put them with me on Facebook. Check it out. Thank you all guys for coming and joining us this Halloween night. Y'all have a fantastic time. I will see you all next week, 10 p.m. Eastern live. If you want to join in the chat, we'll be discussing the Nephilim. As Grid would say, coast to coast and around the world, y'all have a fantastic night, and we will see you all later. Let me go ahead and do this because I didn't have it pulled up already. Ah, I'm horrible. Where's it at? They changed stuff on me. No. All right, there we go.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No, we're gonna watch and listen.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
No.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, should we run?
Okay. It's a grizzly.
Are you sure it's not a chipmunk? Action. No, I'm out of here. Action.
It's a grizzly.
I'm out of here.
Huh. Maybe it is a chipmunk. It's a grizzly.
Are we gonna die?
I don't know. We're just gonna sit here and listen and watch.
Let's get out of here, maybe.
Fall!